Welcome to Commercial Real Estate. Today, we are going to have some fun together. Invited a friend and special guest with us. You know, commercial real estate at times, let's be frank, can be quite boring. Boring will not happen today with our special guest, Deena Baikowitz from Fireball Global Network. Deena, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Wally. Happy to be here.
Well, before we go down the rabbit hole of commercial real estate, let's go down the rabbit hole of comedy, stand-up comedy. How does humor and comedy as a professional comedian help one in business development and relationship development?
Oh, that's the $64 million question. It's a great question. And yes, it helps. The first answer is yes, it absolutely does. It is a way for people to connect. It's a great way to break the ice. I mean, as you said, commercial real estate can be boring. Any kind of business talk can be boring, but comedy just, it breaks down the pretenses and the artifice, and it just brings us together and gets everyone relaxed. And in my case, I happen to be really, really tiny. I'm 4'6¾". And so I'd walk into a room and with a bunch of generally men and women, and, you know, it's like, who's the 12-year-old in the business suit? And for me, it was really a way to sort of establish, I belong here, I have authority and a certain amount of gravitas, and yet I'm fun. And also, it's just, it keeps things lively. Like, nobody wants to be in one of those conversations that sounds like a Charlie Brown episode of, you know, FAR and debt. And like the numbers are spinning in my head. I'm like, we can't be having this meeting at a cocktail party. And listen, comedy is also, it's relatively safe in the sense that you're not going to, you know, as long as you keep it within certain parameters, you're not going to offend anybody. And it's also a way to just say, listen, there are serious issues in our world and in our industry. Let's find a way to approach them without it being a crisis or problematic. So instead of, you know, if you're having a difficult negotiation or you're having some issue, you don't want to make fun of people. You don't want to invalidate their concerns, but it's not me against you. It's me and you together against the problem. And if we can find something to laugh at, take a deep breath.
One of my observations of comedians, and I've had the good fortune to spend time with a few, is in order for something to be humorous, the person delivering that thought has got to have an amazing understanding of the subject matter, and then just stand a little off to the left or stand a little off to the right and express it in a way that someone hasn't heard before that really causes thought. And sometimes that thought results in humor, but comedy doesn't come from not understanding the subject.
Yeah, comedy, you have to be sharp. You have to think fast. You have to be on your feet if it's one of those situations. And for me, comedy was just naturally part of my personality. I didn't get into stand-up comedy until 2018. So I'm fairly new to the world of performing stand-up comedy, but I've always been one of those people who could just make something funny and find a connection. And I'll give you an example. This was at a conference in Chicago at a gorgeous hotel, and the ceilings are these giant ceilings, and I'm standing with my boss and some potential clients and a group of people, and they're looking up and they say, oh my God, this, you know, this architecture makes me feel so small. And I said, welcome to every single day of my life. But that makes me own this. It's not, I'm not diminishing myself. It's like now I'm, you know, standing head and shoulders above everyone else. But it's like at some point we are all going to feel small. And just being able to make those connections that bring people together. Yes, you have to know what's going on. But there's also a lot of universal truths in comedy, just as there are universal truths in business, whether it's real estate, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're in the arts or a coach. The universal truths and the common themes are building relationships and branding and doing work that you care about, making a difference, building your business, moving forward in your career, right? All of that is fairly generic and universal across all industries. And I have worked in many industries. I have a social work degree. I've worked in hospitals and nursing homes. I've worked in arts marketing, and I've worked in engineering companies and commercial real estate. And in all of them, the first thing you hear is the most important thing is networking. It's building relationships, right? That crosses all aspects of our lives, whether you call it friendship, networking, strategic professional relationships, It's about human beings coming together. And comedy, to me, is about human beings finding something that we have in common and something to laugh at about ourselves, about our city, about our industry.
So if the fundamental challenge in business networking, business development is that transition from know me, like me to trust me,
Yeah.
where is that fine line where humor or comedy doesn't put the trust me at risk? I can know you very quickly because it's fun. I can enjoy you, I like you very quickly because of the banter and the comfort with humor and dialogue. Does that ever put the trust me at risk?
Your questions are superb. They're so on. And for anyone who's listening, we didn't prepare. I mean, we've talked about this, but there are no pre-prepared questions or like, I didn't fill out these answers ahead of time. It can put it at risk. How you're perceived, if you're just the fun guy or the fun girl, if you're just, great at a cocktail party, but we want to take a meeting, right? And for women, it is absolutely different for women. We are held to different standards, double standards, higher standards, lower standards, whatever. Being able to balance the fun with the serious. So in my case, sure, I can work a room. People said she's the life of the party, she's hilarious, but I also need to get the meeting to say, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I'm skilled and experienced in my field. In this case, it's consulting and coaching and training. When I worked for other companies, I was representing them and their talents and skill sets. So for anybody, whatever you do, it is that combination of the fun and the personable and also the substantive. So like anything else, right? There's a certain amount of that easing into a heavy conversation from light to medium to heavy and then back again. So it's always a balance, whether it's comedy or just general conversation. The thing to avoid is bland and boring. And as you said, this show will not be bland and boring. Your conversations should not be bland and boring. Your meetings should have some sense of how are we getting to know each other, business-wise and personally. So if I just like, oh, I have these services and I want to sell them to you because I know you do title insurance or you're a developer. No, you need to get to know the other person. And that means you need to do what I'm about to do, which is to stop talking and listen.
Talk to me, if you would, about rounding out credentialing, rounding out experiences so that a person doesn't become linear. And if the last thing we would ever want is a person to be linear as a comedian in commercial real estate, it just doesn't work. How did your experiences and lessons learned and things taught at the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute, when you served there as a board member, how did that blend with the other extreme of being a stand-up comedian?
So that's interesting. You brought together different elements. I am a board member of the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute. That is a nonprofit founded by Liz Abzug, the daughter of the late Congresswoman Bella Abzug, and I volunteer there as well. But this is an organization for young women and girls. So it's not the business world per se, but it is our mission is training young women and girls for the future, to lead the future. And so, but what we provide for these women in high school is debate skills, professional debate skills. We have the Urban Debate League. We provide, I've conducted networking workshops, right? Vision boarding. We've done a commercial real estate presentation workshop with them, because a lot of people think, oh, what do high school kids know about commercial real estate, especially for kids who are coming from underserved communities. I don't know a lot of people who grew up saying, oh, I want to be in commercial real estate when I grow up, unless they were born into that family or have those role models. And because we have such a diverse population in the New York City high school system, public school system. And so understanding, and this is what drew me to commercial real estate. I had no background in real estate. And someone said to me, you should get into real estate, you'd like it. And I was like, I don't know anything about it. Sounds like fun, I'll try it. And what you learn is that it is about developing communities and cities and schools and jobs and better workplaces and better green space and their, sustainable development. And I also worked with brownfields organizations in the New York City Mayor's Office for Environmental Remediation. So teaching the next generation or giving them the tools to understand what it's about and let them teach us on how to make the world a better place which sounds, I know, altruistic and idealistic, but ultimately we're all in here to make our lives and our cities and our communities and our suburbs better. And now, of course, with COVID and the pandemic, and what is the future of commercial real estate? How is it different? How are we reimagining office space? But we've done it before. Office space in the 50s, in the corner office and the big secretarial pools, and then the completely open office and the WeWork style and the shared co-working spaces, and even the way hotels, like I work with the hospitality industry, which is commercial real estate, how they've reimagined how people want to stay and work and live, where it used to have the TV and the giant dresser and the giant desk in the rooms and the mini bars. Nobody wants to work in the room. They want to work downstairs in the lobby where there's other people, or in a conference center, or have those things at their fingertips. And so to me, it's real estate is looking at how people live and interact and how we as a society develop. And that to me is what's fascinating.
Well, I took a twist for you there. And the reason I did that, Deena, was sometimes humor and comedy, I view it as a delivery method. It's a way of communicating, a way of bonding. And if not done well, or not done at the appropriate time, people can lose sight of what's beneath it and what's being delivered. And that was my why for the Bella Absinthe Leadership Institute, as well as your work as a board member at Crew in New York and other places, that it's important that we get people to understand that humor and comedy is a conduit. It isn't enough to stand alone. Just being funny is not going to get us any business. Just being a joy to be in conversation isn't going to develop business. We've still got to have that strength of substance beneath that. And the humor becomes a piece of personal branding. I wanted to ask you about, first share an observation with you and then get your thoughts.
Sure.
In residential real estate, personal branding has been commonplace for the last at least quarter century. The idea that the office brand is what's led the development is fading rapidly in residential. It's, hello, I am Deena. I happen to be with this particular brand. In commercial, I'm still feeling very much, my observation is very much that the office or the corporate brand tends to lead, and the individual agent / broker is rarely in the forefront. Share your thoughts on developing an individual brand as a commercial real estate agent, as opposed to leading with the brand of the company in developing relationships in business.
That's an excellent point, Wally. And it is something we've talked about briefly before, because, I like to say, if there's 100 people in a room with the same job title and credentials and education and experience, how will you stand out from those other 99 people with the same background as you? Whether you're a broker, title insurance, a lawyer, an architect, an engineer, and so, or a consultant or coach. It really is about the relationships. Yes, it sounds like a cliche, but we all know that we're doing business with people. We're not doing business just with the brand, and every brand, every company is about their people. What is the culture? So as an individual, right, you may work at company X and then move to company Y and company Z over your career and over your lifetime. The people remember you. How do people remember you? What do they remember you for? And there's different elements of that personal brand. So in my case, comedy is part of my personality. It's also my hobby, in the sense that I also do stand-up comedy, and I do comedy keynotes. I just sent in a proposal this morning, in fact, for a women in leadership networking comedy keynote workshop. So what is it that people get to know about you besides the company you work for? And your hobbies can be with, sports, golf. Obviously, I've done lots of golf outings, organized golf outings. I'm also known as an organizer. It's not enough for me just to go to a networking event. I want to launch networking groups and organize conferences and networking events. For somebody else, it may be they're a speaker on a specific topic, or they have a certain skill set wine tastings, for example, or cooking. If you tell me you have boats, right? That's like some of the things I know about you. Boats, oh, that's a topic of conversation. It sets you apart already. What are you an expert at outside of your industry? What are you an expert at within your industry? Because I could line up, I don't use a lineup, but I could put a room, 10 different real estate lawyers. And I coach a lot of lawyers in all aspects of the law. Each one has some specific area of their practice, some specific area of expertise that is different than the next person. If you're in construction, like 1031 exchanges, affordable housing, there's nuances and there's levels to what you do, and there's niches. So letting people know your specific brand within your expertise. Also on a personal level, where do you live? Where did you grow up? Do you speak other languages? Your community involvement, cultural, religious, whatever it may be, boards that you serve on, right? What are the causes that you care about? That helps you create and set yourself apart with a personal/professional brand. And within the industry, you mentioned some of the organizations I've been involved with, Crew and Cornet, and I mean, all of them, right? There is no organization in commercial real estate that I have not been involved with or attended their events or know of. And so I look at people in the industry and say, how are they leading and supporting and committed to our industry? What organizations are they involved with and how are they involved? That matters to me. If somebody just says, I do my job and I go home at night, that does not make me trust them and like them as much, because then I feel like it's just their day job. But where they're truly committed and dedicated to other people's success and to the success of the industry. And yes, it's a networking tool. Of course it is. We are here to do business, but how we do it and how we present ourselves as resources. I built my reputation before I knew anything about the industry, just as somebody who's helpful and would give other people advice on their resumes, on networking in general. I didn't need to know all the players in the industry to still be useful. And so I tell everyone, there is something you can do for someone else. You may be a 20-something-year-old and you're asking advice from a 40-something-year-old and you think it's one way. I guarantee you there's still something that you can offer, something you can do for that person.
Absolutely. There comes a time in each of our lives, personal lives as well as business lives, where it's more important to understand who you are than what you do. Because if I understand what you do before I understand who you are, I'm often disappointed in the professional relationship over time. And absent an emergent need, if I were to break my leg, I really don't have time to figure out who that orthopedic surgeon is while I'm getting my leg glued back together. But the vast majority of things that challenge us in business in particular are not urgent or emergent. Mm-hmm. And in most cases, we have an existing relationship or a medley of relationships to solve the problems we presently have or care to the needs we presently have. Mm-hmm. And the only way someone is going to displace those relationships is with a who they are, such that when I need to make a change, that I reach out to that who, so that they then can solve my need. I think too many people are in a hurry to gain business eminently, immediately, without giving an opportunity for the who to come through, so you can really bond and want to do business with that person.
I completely agree. It's that the transactional versus the relational.
Right.
And unless, you can have some ad campaign on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, that is transactional. That's, I like your flashy ad. I like your website. I'm going to read all your materials and sign up for it. But that's not what we do in our industry. It is absolute, the relationships lead to the transactions. If someone knows they can trust you, if they know that you are going to be there a month from now, that they see you on a regular basis, right? And networking is like any other kind of relationship. It's like dating. It takes time. I use so many dating analogies. As somebody who's very experienced in networking and very experienced in dating, believe me, it's like you don't go on a first date expecting a marriage proposal. You don't go into a networking event expecting to close a deal after a 5-minute conversation at a cocktail party. And nobody wants to be that sleazy person that shoves their business card into your hand and says, hi, hire me.
Right.
And it happens on LinkedIn as well. I'd love to share this example because it's happened to me too many times. And I find I get very angry and upset when I see bad networking. Like, don't let bad networking happen to you. And then I kind of think, okay, why am I angry and why am I upset? Nobody did anything to hurt me, but I'm angry and upset because it gives networking a bad name. And this is why people get frustrated, because they see the sleazy and they think, oh, networking is sleazy. It's not. I have another expression. I say, if you say you hate networking, you're doing it wrong, or you don't understand what it is. Right? And they're like, well, it's a bad word. It's a 4-letter word. I'm like, no, it's not 4 letters. It's 8 letters. I don't do math. I do people, not math. But it really is about the attitude and approaching it as, we're here to get to know each other. So if somebody sends me an email or a LinkedIn message and says, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you promote my event or my workshop or my services and make these introductions? And I'm like, A, I don't even know you. And B, you haven't offered anything in return. C, I run workshops and events. Why aren't you offering to promote mine? But if a friend of mine, if somebody I know and have gotten to know over time and seen at different conferences and different networking events and different committees says, hey, could I get your advice? Is this something you'd be willing to help me with? As opposed to, I need a favor, do this for me, right? A little, you catch more flies with honey. Then we have a relationship. I want to help you. I want to see you succeed. And so understanding that it takes time. And that, yes, we are all in it to sell and succeed. But how you show up in the sales process, in the networking process, tells me a lot about you. If you show up as pushy and entitled and one-sided, I'm going to imagine that and assume correctly that that's how you operate in all your business dealings and your personal dealings, that it's all about you and you don't care about the other person. You're not going to be good on a team. But if I see that you're out there trying to help someone else and that you are respectful to a competitor and that you believe in collaboration, whether it's just including someone in a conversation, I think, oh, I want someone like that on my team because they're going to bring in more people. They're going to be welcoming. They can be a real asset beyond just the specific service that they provide.
Share your thoughts and experiences with me on the risks and or value of sharing failures, foibles, and vulnerability in branding and networking.
I'm a big believer in transparency, in authenticity, and for me, for my brand, I've always said I have very few boundaries between personal and professional. Partly because I run my business, Fireball is my brand. It's how I'm known. It's my company name. I think it depends what we're sharing to a certain extent. I've talked about the fact that I had to leave New York and I am a remote New Yorker currently in exile and I'm not happy about it. And all I want is to come back to New York. Now, I could keep that quiet, but how could anyone help me if they don't know what I want? Like when I was on our friend Mike Ham, the coolest guy in title insurance, the morning spotlight, we promoted the hashtag bring Deena back, right? And someone else picked up on it and mentioned it to me the other day. So if I keep quiet about what I want, how can anyone help me? I've also recently talked about the fact that I discovered I have ADHD. I've had it my whole life. I didn't know. And it's something else that it's always been a part of me. And clients and friends have come out of the woodwork privately or publicly and said, hey, I'm in that community too, or my husband or my wife or my kid or my friend, my brother has ADHD, happy to share resources or tools, or wow, thank you for posting that. Like, I really believe that if we can be a role model and an example for others, even just being short, that has always made me different. That was part of my origin story. And I talk about it because my career and my life in social work and real estate and coaching and training has been about making people feel included and connected. And so because of my own story, but we're all like that. Every speaker has their story, their career, something that happened to them, some kind of failure. It would be false to say, oh, everything's fantastic and look at my success. And, got through all the problems easily. I just, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. No, there's a lot of ups and downs, especially this year. And I think anyone who is overly positive, that positive mental attitude and toxic positivity. And I say this as somebody, positivity is one of my 7 Clifton strengths. Like, it is in my DNA as well. I'm the happy, energetic fireball. But that is still tempered with the tough times.
Sure.
And if we're not honest about that, we're going to go back to the 50s, or worse. So, and that information and understanding, knowledge is power. Right. So if I know what's going on with you and you know what's going on with me, even if it's just, God forbid, a leg or a brain or whatever it is, we are here. I can help you. I'm great in a crisis. I know the medical system. I've worked in situations like that. I've worked in life and death situations. After that, everything else is easy, quite frankly.
Sure.
So, yeah, I believe in being open within reason, within the boundaries of what's appropriate. I went to an event once. This was in New York City. It was Bryant Park. And we were waiting for them to open the doors. I'm rarely the first person at a networking event. I'm usually the last one. Some people close down bars. I close down networking events. For whatever reason, I was there early, and there was one gentleman there. I'd recognized him from one or two previous events, and he just dumped his whole life story and his divorce and the issues in his, like, in 5 minutes waiting outside for them to open the venue. And I felt bad for him, of course, but that was not the appropriate time or place to tell a virtual stranger. Like, I had to ask him his name when I said, "Oh, you look familiar. We've met before. Remind me your name." That was not the place to dump everything.
Right.
And any, but I did
much
feel
like humor, there's a right metering of humor.
Mhm.
There's a right metering of sharing, of what you share, how you share, and when you share it. Talk to me about, if I'm an individual, specifically in commercial real estate, looking to establish a bit of a personal brand, to break out from just being known as a member of the company, but rather as an individual who has this skill set in commercial real estate. What are some of the foundational pieces or pillars of establishing a personal brand? Is it dress? Is it logo? Is it which nonprofits I'm in? What are 3 or 4 things that I really want to have clarity on as I'm building that professional image of brand?
Another great question. My answer is going to be, it depends. Three things for one person may be different for somebody else. So I would say it's the 3 most important things, the things that you care about the most in your life that are relevant, right? So if one of those elements is your professional involvement with industry associations like Cornet, like CREW, like NAOP, ICSC, all of them, whatever they may be, to me, that is definitely a very important one, as is community, volunteer, nonprofit. Right. But maybe you only need one. Maybe your second one is your hobby, whether it's sports or comedy, or you're a triathlete or dance, whatever that, or arts, whatever that hobby may be. I think that tells me who you are personally. And then your overall brand, I mean, the logo, I have a logo because I have a company, you have a logo, which is great. Even when I saw the blue and the blazer, right? It's been so long since we've all put on suits because we're all on Zoom all the time. And I threw on the blazer right when I saw you on camera. I'm wearing a dress underneath, but it's like, oh, this feels like home again, in a sense. It feels like we're back to business. But so I don't know that it's necessarily, though, the look or the appearance, but it's that, how do people describe you? And this might be that third wild card of, ask your friends, your colleagues, how do they describe you? What is it that people come to you for? So for me, it was always networking. I'm a connector. I have great ideas, and that has become part of my brand. For you, it could be that you offer this platform. This isn't a service. You're not selling podcasting, but you are selling a platform to showcase and highlight other people in the industry. And that is truly part of what makes you special, and that's part of your brand. Commercial real estate today with Wally Conway, it's right there. So I'd say, look at your community, nonprofit, what matters to you? That's part of your brand. What matters to you? You could be a history buff. That could be part of your brand. How are you involved with our industry? Do you care about mentoring the next generation? Do you care about putting on events? Do you care about going into new markets, whatever that may be? And then your overall, your education, your training, your experience, the skill sets that you bring from job to job to job. That set of skills, I mentioned Clifton Strengths Finders, which I love as an assessment because it doesn't say that it's not binary. It's not like you're either this or that. It's not extrovert or introvert. It's just these are your particular arrangement of natural talents. And that is what your brand is. What are your talents? What is your personality? How do you show up? And it's what comes naturally to you and what's easy for you. And that is your brand. Like for me, the comedy, it's natural, comes easy to me. I took classes. I had private coaching. I do workshops and open mics, and I speak on comedy panels. I've written articles about comedy. Like I don't do anything halfway. It's if I'm in, I'm all in. I organized a comedy fundraiser last May for COVID-related charities. And it was probably one of the first online comedy fundraisers because we were all just getting online. But to me, it was something meaningful to do with my time and my energy and my talents. Like I am compelled to organize. I was like, I wake up, I was like, I need to organize something. What's the next conference or event, or just even getting a few people together on the phone or on Zoom or in person as prudently as possible.
Yeah. I took improv lessons a few years ago, which was a fascinating experience. When as a layperson watching improv, it just seems like chaos that suddenly gets focused. And then having taken improv lessons, I went, oh, there's a process here. There's a system here. This is very interesting. When it comes to establishing that personal brand, I encourage people there are three basic pillars in the Wally universe: is the personal, the professional, and the philanthropic. That is, be anchored well in one or more professional organizations. And that doesn't mean send in the membership fee. It means be involved, contribute in some way. And the same with the personal, something that is important to you personally. As you shared, for me, it's boats, or it's food, or it's wine, and other things like that. I've got a host of them. They'll only sort of advocate one at a time. And then the philanthropic piece, for me, that's Best Buddies and some other things that we're doing. But if a person can pick from those three, here's how I project personally, here's how I project professionally, here's how I project philanthropically. You can build a really sweet brand in a very small amount of time and attract some like-minded, wonderful people to you. When people attempt to create a brand that's not congruent with who they are on the inside, that is misery. It's misery for them, and it's misery for the people they're attempting to network and relate to.
And you mentioned three different elements. Those are not three different brands. They're all elements of your overall brand. You show up the same way in all three of those areas. The focus may be different, but it's still Wally Conway, connector, philanthropist, wine expert, boat expert. And so as soon as you said wine and food, I thought, well, great, you're a resource, right? We are
same individuals showing up the same way, just in different lanes to round out who you are.
Everyone's a resource. The question is, what are you a resource? In what area are you a resource? How are you a resource to people? So I may say, oh, I have some people in Florida, I want to connect you, or looking for a great restaurant. Who are the restaurant owners that you know and support? How do you help those restaurant owners? Maybe you organize a networking event at one of the local restaurants, which is great for real estate, great for business, great for the community, right? It's not just, oh, I can recommend the place. It's, I know the owner. They're going to take great care of you. You're going to have a wonderful experience. We might film. Stop me anytime, but don't, because the ideas just keep rolling. Thank you, ADHD and ideation, right? It's finding those ways to benefit lots of people, or as many people as you can, or even just one person in one way. It's how do we serve others? How do we serve our community? How are we a resource? And that becomes our brand.
Yep. Yeah, that's beautiful. For individuals who are looking to hone the skill that you have so well honed in comedy, in networking, in bringing those things into their personal and professional lives to enhance them. What's the best way to get a hold of you and get involved with Fireball Network?
Okay, so fireballnetwork.com is my website. I've had my company 13 years. I've been in real estate since March 2003. March 13th, 2003 was my very first crew meeting. I'll never forget it. I wore a cherry red suit and I said, I am transitioning into commercial real estate. I would appreciate any advice anyone can give me. And the women just surrounded me and gave me advice. And so what I do is coaching on networking, coaching on branding. I do workshops. I've worked with construction companies and engineering companies, and I love our industry. I mean, it's so diverse and so multifaceted. So I would encourage people, please go to my website, Deena@fireballnetwork.com. It's DENA. I'm on all the social media as Fireball Deena on Instagram and Twitter and Clubhouse and Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn, Deena Baikowitz. And just let's talk. Right? I love to connect with people. I have a calendar link embedded in my website, in my LinkedIn profile to schedule, and I branded it. It isn't just, oh, book a time. It's, 15 minutes for a quickie.
There you have it.
A little bit of humor, like make the damn scheduling app fun.
Want to thank you as always for spending the time. I really enjoy the interaction with you. I learn from you. I enjoy what you do. I love sharing what you do. Fireballnetwork.com. Reach out to Deena. I promise you, you will enjoy and learn and become a little bit better than you were before. Have a beautiful day.